Hello, welcome to our weaving project today. All right, so let's get started. I want to give you guys a couple tips because you can do this at home, okay? So today in class, I'm going to be giving you guys these cardboard weaving looms, and they are just a piece of cardboard, and then they have little slits in the top and in the bottom. So they have the same number at the top, the same number at the bottom. That's the trick. So if you're at home and you want to make your own weaving loom, I actually make lots of weaving looms, and this is just a piece of cardboard from a Cheerios box. So the cereal in the morning, I kept it, and then I cut little tiny slits in the top, and I cut little tiny slits in the bottom. I actually glued down a popsicle stick near the slits, and that just, you'll see in a minute, when you start weaving with your needle, it's so that the yarn is not right next to my cardboard. It helps it a lot because this cardboard is much thinner than this cardboard, so the popsicle sticks are kind of useful. If you don't have popsicle sticks, you could just cut maybe a piece of thicker cardboard and cut it into a long rectangle, like that looks like a popsicle stick, and glue it on there. Okay, so that's how to make your own at home using just recycled material. Okay, so let me put that off to the side. What you will need for weaving on a straight loom like this, you'll need a skein of yarn to get started here, and we're going to use a piece of tape. We are going to use something to write our names on it, and scissors, and this long needle, okay? These are just plastic needles. They're not sharp or anything, but they're really helpful for weaving on a loom like this. You can get these at like a craft store, Michael's or Hobby Lobby, anywhere, for like, I think they're like 50 cents, okay? So now I'm gonna take my skein of yarn and I'm gonna unravel it. Okay, so find the tail and take off some of that yarn. And then I'm gonna show you the really easy way to make the warp of your weaving loom. Remember, the warp are the threads that stay on my weaving loom. Okay, so I'm gonna tape the tail right here on this side. Then I'm gonna take my yarn and I'm gonna put it into the top notch that's all the way to the side. It doesn't matter if you start on the right or the left, okay? I'm gonna start on the right over here. So I go into that top notch, flip your loom over, and now I'm gonna go from the one that's way farthest over on this side to the one that responds to that one, which means it matches it on the other side. It's the first one over here, okay? A lot of times kids are rushing and they go from the first slit, then they accidentally go down to the second slit. It has to be first one to first one, okay? And then I like to have a lot of fringe at the end of my weaving, and so there's a couple of different ways you can warp your weaving loom, but I like to have long threads. And the way that you get long threads at the end is if you take your weaving loom, go along the back again, and you're just gonna bring it around, go into the second notch. You know what is the back because the back has the piece of tape. This is the front because it doesn't have the tape, okay? Now I'm gonna go from the second notch down to the second notch on the front. Make sure your yarn is pulled pretty tight. You don't want it to be loose and baggy. You want it to be nice and tight, okay? So I put it into the second notch. And before I get too far now, I'm gonna write my name on my piece of tape. Please don't write it on the weaving loom because I reuse these, we recycle, okay? And now you're just gonna keep going. Oh, my scissors are on my yarn. So I'm gonna go to the back. I'm on the back because I see the tape. I'm gonna go into notch number 3 and notch number 3 on the front. It's really important in just a little while to know what's the front and the back. It's not so important right now while you're making your weaving loom, but once we start weaving, it is going to be really important. So I go to number 4 on the back, and then I'm on the front, and now I go down to number 4. Wrap it around, go to number 5, and I'm just gonna keep going until I'm all the way done. And I've got all of these notches with the thread going vertically up and down to the same number of the notch. So there's one, or the slit. You could call it a slit too, or a notch. Let's see, here we go, back to the top, to the bottom. I'm almost there. Oh, my yarn's kind of going all over. If your yarn goes on the floor and stuff, it's okay. You just have to keep unwinding the yarn because we use quite a bit of yarn to make the weaving loom here. So I go to the top, down to the bottom. Oh, this is my last one. So there we go. And into that last slit. Okay, now, please do not cut this yarn right now really short because we're actually gonna start weaving with this color right away. Okay, we're gonna start weaving with this. So I am gonna turn it over. I'm gonna unwrap my yarn. So I've got about the length of my arm. Then I'm gonna cut it right there. Move it to the side because I don't need it anymore. And now we're gonna thread our needle, okay? So watch how I thread a needle. You take your yarn, I've got the tail, you bend it over so it looks kind of like a candy cane, and then pinch it right there. So I've got that tiny little, looks like a tiny little loop or a little pinch of yarn. You're gonna take that you have right between your fingers, you're gonna put it through the eye of the needle. So put it through the eye, pull the tail out, okay? And I like to leave a little bit of slack right there, little extra tail. And now when I'm holding my needle, this is really important because when you go to pull your yarn tight, your yarn is gonna come off of the needle all the time if you don't kind of wrap a couple of these fingers around the needle. And then I use my thumb and my pointer finger to hold the needle. So these fingers are just kind of wrapped around the bottom of the needle and holding on to that thread, okay? So now I'm going to start weaving, but if you see a piece of tape, red flag, stop what you're doing. You should be seeing no tape. No tape means this is the front. We always want to weave on the front of our loom, okay? So now I'm going to, the yarn is right here. I ended at this part of my loom. Okay, there's really no top or bottom right now. It's all the same. So this is where I ended, but it's the back. So I'm gonna take my yarn, bring it around to the front, and now you're gonna do a pattern. This is the plain weave, where you are gonna go over one thread, under another, over, under, over, under, over, under. Sometimes you gotta use your other hand to help you out. Over, under, over, under, over, under. There we go. So now I'm gonna check my work, just like you do in math class. I'm gonna make sure I did an A-B pattern. Over, under, over. So check it, make sure you didn't miss any. If you did, you just back the needle up and do it again, okay? But it looks like I got it. So now I'm gonna pull all the way through. I'm pulling, 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 pulling. There we go. And then you're gonna just bring it up to the top, okay? So, oh, I forgot to bring a fork out. I'll get a fork in just a minute. The forks help to comb your yarn next to each other, okay? And so we'll use those in just a minute. Now, I have my yarn. I did one row of the weft, and I ended by going over this last thread that's over here on the right side. I hope you guys can see that. I went over it. Can you see that? So now, because it's always doing opposites in weaving, when I start to go the other way, because I'm gonna kind of make a little zigzaggy pattern all the way down this weaving loom, when I start to go back, because I went over last time, now I have to go under. So I'm gonna go under, over, under, over, under, over, under, over. I'm going to go all the way across. I stop and check my work when my needle's in there. Looks like I got it. So now I'm going to pull it through. Okay, now here's the trick. Don't pull it super tight. Otherwise, all of these threads start to get squished like this, and then soon you're not going to be able to tell which thread is which. Okay, so you want to pull it so it's kind of tight when you get rid of all the slack on this end. Then stop, use your fork. I can just use my fingers right now. Use the fork and kind of push the two weft threads together. Okay, so I've got that. Now my yarn's over on this side now. So now I'm gonna zigzag back. So now I went under, let me bring it close. I went under this last thread on my loom. So now I need to do opposite. So I'm going to go over the last thread, under the second, over, under, making that A-B pattern with my needle. I stop, I check my work, okay, looks good, I didn't miss any. Then I pull it through. Oh, but now I'm starting to get rid of all this slack that's over here. There's a little bit left. See how there's a little bit right here? So now I gotta pull it very carefully. And now I'm gonna stop. I'm gonna stop there, go get a fork, and push those threads together so it's nice and tight and you don't have holes in your weaving. Okay, and you're gonna keep going. So now my thread's over here. The last time I was weaving, I went over this last thread. So now when I go back in the other direction, I'm gonna go under. If you said under, you're right. Okay, I'm just gonna keep going this way, this way, this way, this way, zigzagging all the way down my weaving loom until it's all filled up. Okay, you don't have to do this whole weaving loom if you don't want to. You can make short ones if you want. Okay, just depends how much time we have. So we'll learn some new stitches next week. This is the plain weave, and this is how we're going to start today. I hope you guys have fun. This is a really good time.